Welcome to Your Brand Amplified, the podcast where we interview marketers, publicists, and brands to learn their stories, what makes them tick, and tips and tricks that make a difference. I am super excited today to have Carina Ramirez Cahan on the show of Cobalt Rose Company, and you have a few different ventures within that brand. Carina, thank you so much for being here to share your story.
Well, you're welcome.
So please talk about, because you didn't start out as an entrepreneur, you kind of fell into entrepreneurship. What was that journey like? What were you intending to do when you started your career and when you were going through school?
Well, when I was going through school, I got my graduate degree in Japanese history, and I studied the language and lived in Japan for a while. So I really thought I'm going to go into international trade relations with Japan. But that's not how it all worked out. When I was much younger, I really thought that I was going to have my own business. But once I got into graduate school and then jobs came my way and they were well-paying corporate jobs, and it's kind of hard to, turn that down. And I started that, but I knew early on in my corporate career, especially on Wall Street, I knew that, say, for example, investment banking was not for me. It's a great field for other people, but not for me. So I duked it out for a little bit, and I thought I've got to do something else. And the 9 to 5, or in investment banking, it's not 9 to 5, it's much longer. But I decided to go try to find a business opportunity, something that I could advance. And so in my previous company, which was in renewable energy, my business partner had the idea. He'd already raised some money and he needed help with a business plan. And so I helped him with that. And then little by little, I just got more involved in the renewable energy field. And we went and raised venture capital and we got going with the company. And then I exited about 7 years later.
Okay.
Then the company continued on its own way. And I really enjoyed that experience. It was tough. I mean, I can't sugarcoat it. Raising money is a really grueling process. And then you don't have complete control when you take other people's money. And you've got to make decisions and you're on the front line. But all those ups and downs, nothing was predictable. In many ways, every day, things that you're encountering. And it was very exciting. And so I wanted to start another company, but this time I really wanted to be like something I enjoyed doing, something I was really a project that I could speak to personally. And I believe in renewable energy, but I thought, okay, but I'm not a scientist. So my husband being a breast surgeon with thousands of patients and so many of them complaining about their bras, and he can see the effects of many bras on women's bodies, the underwire, the little notching in the shoulder, back pain, all of that. And my husband is a physicist, a buff. He loves physics and he loves engineering. And of course, he's a surgeon. And so he said, there's got to be a better way to do this. So he came up with an alternative and he gave it to me and he said, could you do something with it? He hammered out a prototype and he said, could you do something? And it was a really crude prototype. And I thought, all right, I could do something with that. And so then I got around trying to figure out how I could actually make this into something that we could put into a garment that a woman would wear. Mm-hmm. And that took some time because I don't have connections in the industry, in the apparel industry. I'm a consumer of bras, yes, but that's the extent of my knowledge. I wasn't coming from a fashion background, but I am fortunate to live just north of Manhattan, and we still have a viable garment district in the city. Mm-hmm. And showrooms for all your components. So I took classes at the Fashion Institute of Technology.
Oh, nice.
And I was the mature student. I was there with, 18 and 20-year-olds and thinking, wow, I wish I had known about this school when I was that age, because there's so many interesting other careers that I didn't know about.
Yeah.
And young people with incredible ideas. And they all want to do something interesting, But I learned, and I met my bra designer that I then hired because she has all the networking and the knowledge, everything that I don't have at that level. And that's when I started working on the designs. And then from there, I started to go through the whole process of how do you make a garment in a factory?
Yeah.
And I chose New York because not only the proximity, but also because I could control some of that production. Exactly. You have minimums you have to meet. And in Asia and in Europe, the minimums are much higher. And coming out with a new design, I didn't want to end up with 10,000 garments of my first iteration.
Right.
It would have been cheaper, but I decided, no, I want to do it in Manhattan so I could be at the factory weekly. I can stop production. We can change something that's not working. I have more control on the initial product. And so then I did my soft launch so that I could get some feedback and incorporate that into my next designs. And that's what we're doing.
Fantastic. So I'd love to talk about the market differentiation. I've heard of other small companies. There are many I follow that have different bra designs, different underwear, and some of them I've purchased from and then not been as happy with the product as I thought I was going to be, or I'm like, oh, this is falling apart a lot faster than I expected to. Some of that might be price point, but also how do you differentiate yourself in this marketplace? People can go to the big box stores, right? And get something and it's utilitarian and it's inexpensive, but really understanding the benefits of having a quality product that's really made for your body. Right. Yes. How do you cut through all the other noise out there in the market to make sure that you're being seen?
That's a good question. And that's a really tough thing to do because it's hyper competitive. So you have your major brands that we all know, everything from Hanes, Bali, Jockey, American Eagle, one of the largest, the Aerie brand is one of the largest producers of bras in this country, aimed at a much younger demographic and a very different price point than mine. You have Natori, you have Wacoal. These are big established companies with their distribution in place, their advertising, PR, everything in place. A lot of small brands come up and they try to do the direct to consumer because it's a less expensive entry point to get into the field or into the market with your product. And the thing about the bra industry is that we're basically dealing with the same design that's been around forever. That underwire was developed in the 1930s and we still have it. So companies have tried to get around that. You see now maybe, I was in Target the other day and I saw this, it's like knockoffs of Lululemon, for example, but it's like a one-piece garment and it's got the molded cup already in there. There's no seam or anything. It's really neat, but it's wireless and it's designed to kind of support and shape you a little bit, but it doesn't do the best job possible. It may be more comfortable when you're sitting around and lounging around, particularly if you're larger busted, but it's an innovation, but it doesn't fully, I don't believe, work as promised. And also, a lot of people don't want to pay a lot for a garment, which I get, and it's out of the budget for many people. But if you're going to make something in New York, it's going to be more expensive. That's just the way it is. That's why we have so much stuff offshore. If you get it made, say, in China, it's going to be a lot less expensive and you can sell it for a lot less here, but everything is going to be cheaper on that garment. It's not going to be able to stand up to the wear and tear of a garment that you basically wear every day.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So in terms of differentiating yourself, I see a lot of interesting colors, shape, colorful advertising, maybe a lot of technology and trying to find the proper fit, which is always an issue. And there is nothing standard about fit. I mean, a 36C in one brand is not the same as a 36C in another brand.
Wow. I had no idea.
It's not standardized. And some cut very narrow, some cut much larger. So it's just like when you buy a pair of jeans, a size 4 or 6 in one brand, it's not the same as a 4 or 6 in another brand. Like, go figure, right? It's not standardized. It's very difficult. And the bra in particular, it's a very particular garment for women. What I like, you may not like. So trying to meet the pain points for different women is a hard thing. And I think what you have to do when you're starting out, as I am, is you look at the whole competitive landscape, you look at where the pain points are, and you're just going to have to address one.
Yeah.
And then you're going to really try to address that one, push that message out there. And then over time, you can start to broaden your offerings.
Exactly. I love what you just said because it's something that I firmly believe in. You have to figure out who your ideal customer is. You can appeal to the whole landscape of women or people who wear bras, but that's not going to get you as much as really honing in on your ideal customer, going deep into their issues and needs, and then expanding, just as you said.
That's right. I remember when Lululemon was just a small Canadian brand over 20 years ago. And you could only find some of their things in specialized yoga studios. That's where I found it. The garment I have, and I still have a couple of them, just like vintage pieces. What I bought a long time ago, before they were who they are now, does not look anything like what they have now.
Wow.
They've had, all this time and they've grown and gone public and they've tried to meet the need for many, many women. And they've got really great looking stuff. Some of it's not so well made, they have their issues, but I think that that's what happens when you can grow. Then you can start to meet more of the market, but you got to start with something. They did. They started with a much narrower focus than where they are now. And so I think a lot of the smaller brands, if you try to be something for everyone, you're going to get customers like you who are like, yeah, it didn't quite deliver.
Exactly. And then I'm looking at, so what is a company I can move to for me and my daughter that will be the right fit, that will be the right level of comfort. And I looked at your website and I saw you have basic colors, which I think is honestly better than having all the multiple colors that, what are you going to wear them under?
Right.
Having good neutral and black, and then you have the underwear line as well. And so you're starting to slowly expand, but really developing these core products. So who is your target audience today?
Well, what I did was this. When I initially started this, I was looking at kind of the medium to slightly larger cup woman. I didn't have this huge advertising budget to go nationwide, nor do I have the inventory for that yet. I would hate for someone to try to buy something and I'm out of stock all the time. So I didn't do a big production run and limited to 6 sizes because it's just too expensive to do all the sizes right now on a very new product. And I was thinking about the women in my area, the metropolitan New York area. Mm-hmm. I went to the lingerie stores and I know America's getting bigger. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of women who are quite full cup, and they're the ones who really suffer from lack of support. And they can't necessarily be in a wireless bra. They can maybe at home, but they're not going to go to a meeting in that. Yeah. It doesn't give you the shaping that you like and so forth, and no real support. So I thought, all right, I'm going to aim at that, say 34 to 54, 60 age woman in my area who can afford to spend a little bit more for a quality product. So that's why I got Italian fabrics. I got the Italian lace. I got the French hardware, beautiful luxury items. And I thought, let me just start with them first, because you can always come out with a higher priced item and then learn to make it less expensive and broaden the offerings. Mm-hmm. But you can't come out with a cheaper item and then all of a sudden raise your prices. Right. Yeah. You can't do that. Yeah. That doesn't work. So I thought, okay, I'll start at a higher price point. I'll make really luxury garments, get feedback on what I need to change, then start to look at, as I scale, I'll look at production maybe outside of New York and where I can make it a little bit less expensively, but still have the quality I want. And maybe it won't be that expensive Italian lace, but it'll be something like that that still really feels good. It's stretchy and soft, not scratchy. And I can broaden the styles and the sizes, but also bring down the price point and then maybe appeal to more women at different price points who want an underwire bra, but can't stand underwires. Yeah. If you're an A cup and you don't wear an underwire bra, this is not the bra for you. I'm not trying to meet that need yet, you know? Yeah. I think there's much more available for that sector of the market, to your point. Oh, you can wear the cute bralette, a camisole. You can go without anything, and feel okay. But if you're a large busted or larger busted woman, your options can be more limited, especially as you get older. Currently, you're selling via your website, direct to consumer. Since you're focused on your geographic region, are you doing in-person events? Yeah. I will start. I didn't do a big production run. Mm-hmm. And based on my feedback, I have tweaked my design. And so I'm actually right now, I'm not producing any more of the first style I had. Some inventory left, but I'm in my sample making phase with the factory in New York. I've got different prototypes and samples with my new cups. I just recently got my new cups, which I love, and they're slightly thinner. They have a different neckline. They're very flexible, but they still work as designed and intended. So we're trying different styles, like a demi cup, more of a plunge, and a sports bra. So I'm making these samples right now with our cups. I'm going to get them on the professional bra fit models so that we can kind of tweak them. And then I'm going to go into production. And when I go into production with those, and I know the lead time for this, then I'm going to start my advertising and start to do in-person events because I believe in those. I've already kind of cased out, where I'm going to go do that. And I'm going to do more PR. I found that there was a piece done on me in one of our local magazines, and Martha Stewart was on the cover of the magazine. So that magazine sold, right? Because she lives in this area. And so she's featured regularly in that magazine. And they did an issue on women in business. Nice. They chose 10 women in the area, and I was one. And that article is a 2-page spread in this magazine that reaches the metropolitan New York area and Connecticut. That article brought me a lot of sales. That's great. And that was an article in a magazine, and it really made me think about PR over advertising. And that's the changing landscape of where PR used to be one thing and sales, marketing, they were all separate. But now, just to your point, you can really track
what effect PR has, or if it has an effect. If it's the right publication, you should see an uptick in website traffic,
right?
In lead generation and people asking questions about your products or services, or outright making purchases. So I'm really glad to hear that happened for you, because this is something I preach all the time. Like, it's one tactic, but you have to have the whole integrated strategy, but PR has to be part of that.
Yes. And it takes a while for PR too. I know I'm preaching to the choir here on this one, but it does take a while for PR to generate those stories. But I believe if you have some good PR and you get into the right places with that, I think people want to connect with a story.
Exactly.
And it's hard in an ad. Ads have their places. I believe that. Mm-hmm. But now when I look at Instagram, it's all ads. It's all sponsored. And I don't know if it's effective.
Yeah,
maybe for some brands it is. I don't know. But I find that people want to know a story and they want to know a little bit about the brand. And I think that PR can communicate that a little bit in a more targeted way and an appealing way than an ad can.
Yeah, I agree with you. And you have so many great story angles behind your product, from your husband's expertise to your entrepreneurship journey and the attitude that you're bringing even to the show today. I can tell you're very driven and determined, and that you're not going to give up. You're going to keep on exploring and researching and going down that rabbit hole to make sure that you're getting exactly the product that you would want.
Right. And that is it. I think that is what keeps me in this. I know I'm going into a hyper-competitive industry.
Yeah.
And I do sit here and think, why? Why didn't I just make a t-shirt? It's so much easier. But I really believe in this. I believe in this idea. I feel the science behind it is right on. And it's also at the time when women are getting more focused on their well-being and health. And the right support for women can make a difficult day easier.
Yeah.
And it's something that we wear every day. I believe in this one.
So let's talk a little bit about time. How long has it been in the cycle? Because I think this is something that's really important for people to understand as well. When you come up with an idea, it doesn't mean you're going to get it to market immediately. Like you said, you're testing it, you took it, you got more education, you found the right person, but then you have to go through this whole process, finding the right manufacturer, finding the right materials, testing it in the marketplace, getting the feedback. Now you're doing your second iteration.
I'm glad you asked all that, because when I was looking at your audience, I was thinking, well, what would be the most helpful for your audience from my experience? We have resources now. So there's so much online, and there's so many resources to help you develop your business plan, get your market research, find out where a factory is. There's so much accessible to you online. But one of the greatest sources has been the New York Public Library, their business library. And I know that other cities have a business library with research librarians who can really guide you to get the information you need to get. So I just want to make sure that your audience, who are contemplating starting out, I don't know how to start out. I didn't know how to start out either, but I knew I had an idea. Mm-hmm. I didn't even know how to describe the idea. And I certainly didn't know the terminology for what I was trying to do. So I found out about trade shows from my industry, and then I signed up and I went. And the first couple of ones, I felt like an imposter because I wasn't from the industry. I wasn't a buyer. I wasn't a journalist. I was trying to get some information. So I walked in there and you have your little visitor tag. And as soon as you go to any booth, it's mainly aimed at buyers of lingerie, boutique owners, and so forth. All the vendors, they immediately look at your tag, see, are you a buyer or are you a journalist? Because that, they're interested in that. And I just have visitor. I'm like, who are you? Like, we can't waste time with you. But that was fine because I just wanted to hear, like, what is this like? What do they have at trade show for lingerie? Beautiful stuff. And then it's meeting other people and it's hearing the lingo. And that really was helpful. So any one of your listeners who's contemplating something, find out about the trade groups for your
fantastic
industry. Right. And so it was through that and taking classes that I started to network and meet the people who could help me develop a prototype for my product. And I would say that whole process, it took about 1.5 years, 2 years. Mm-hmm. So it's nothing overnight.
Right.
I didn't know how long it was going to take. I did not know it was going to take this long to get my patents.
Oh, patents. That's a whole other journey.
Because I thought, my previous company, we had patents. And so as soon as we knew what our idea was, and I knew I wanted to go talk to people, I felt like I needed to at least file up the initial preliminary patent paperwork, not knowing what a journey that is and how expensive that gets really fast. But the USPTO site, the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office site, free for everybody to go look at, has a wealth of information. So I hired a lawyer to help me.
Nice.
But if you want to and you don't have the resources to get a lawyer, you can. They're trying to make it easier for people to file their patents and trademarks on their own. It's tricky, but you can. So I filed my patent. That allowed me then, gave me some modicum of protection to then start talking to potential manufacturers to help me develop this idea. So
yeah, let's talk a little bit about that, because I have a trademark for your brand Amplified. And of course, it came back once like, oh, there's this other thing that's similar. Oh, yeah. So we had to do the whole, well, here's how we use it. It's completely different marketplace and all of that. Did you have to go through some of that? Because I imagine rock is nine.
For trademarks, you have classifications. Class 10 or whatever. So someone could have your name, like they had my name for something with tools. And I thought, Cobalt Rose with tools? Okay. I can understand the cobalt, but rose? But it was. So, but it was a different category. It's a different class of products. So when I filed it in Europe, yes, I had to go through that a little bit more.
Okay.
But, our lawyer was able to make a successful argument and we persevered. The patent, I have a utility patent, which is much more difficult to get than a design patent. That was a lot of work. I got the patent in China, I got it in Europe, and I got it in the United States. But that took several years. And then we had the pandemic. So no one was working, But I really persevered with that. And, there's a lot of pushback from the patent examiner. And then you've got to make your counter arguments. And what I learned is you cannot give up. Mm-hmm. A lot of people, they'll get maybe their first rejection, second rejection, and say, okay, that's it. That's not going to happen. But that's not true. I did get my rejections. We just had to constantly amend our claims, and we persevered and we persevered and we persevered. And then we got our patent. Yes, it costs money and you got to have a little budget for that. But what costs money is the lawyer.
Yeah.
Well,
and also you did get your patent in different countries. So I'd love for you to talk about what made you decide to go through that process in different parts of the world and not just in the U.S. market.
I envision making the bras, but it's really the technology inside that I'm going to continue to iterate. Right now, I can take my cup and it's got the technology in the cup, but the cup is one component of a bra. This cup can work in many bras. From many other brands. And so it's kind of like the Intel inside. And so this cup can be used with other bra brands. And I thought, well, maybe I want to work with an Italian brand. Well, maybe I better get my patent in Italy then. And when you initially file your patent in the United States, you have the option at the same time to file in Europe. There's one common body, the European Patent Office, that you can file it there. And you have to do it within a certain time of having filed your U.S. patent. I can't remember, it was within a year or something like that. And then it goes through its process through a central office in Europe. And then once you get to when it's going to be allowed, then you have to specify which countries you want it to be nationalized in. Initially, it's through one body, which makes it very convenient. But I just decided, because I do have visions of partnering and collaborating so that I can reach scale, I thought the more patent protection I have, the better. And I have it in China because so many bras are made in China.
Right.
And then I got it in Europe because that's a big market for me as well. And of course, the United States is the biggest market.
I love that you really are thinking through each step of the way. You're not just seeing what's in front of you right now, but you're saying, what is my end goal and how do I map the strategy to get there?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there are still many interim steps that honestly right now, I have no idea. I have no idea. But all I can do is think, okay, there were a lot of interim steps before that I did not know back then how I was going to do it. But I just got up every day and said, I just got to figure it out. I have to figure it. If this were easy, everybody would be doing it. So it's not supposed to be easy.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to figure it out. And that's where networking and talking to people is really helpful.
Yeah.
And listening to podcasts like this, listening to other people's journeys. I mean, there are a lot of bare knuckle days. That's just part and parcel of this.
Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of this interview, honestly, is your product is bras, but we're not just talking about bras. We're talking about so many processes that people don't think about when they're starting this journey. And these are all questions they need to be asking themselves. Trademarks, patents. Who do I surround myself with? How am I getting the education I need to take that next step? So I love that you've mentioned some resources that you've used that were free, or the library, looking online, finding information, and also that you resourced financially. So there's a wide variety out there. And I feel like you're giving people a lot of hope that as long as you do persevere and you think about what that journey is going to look like, and you might not know every step along the way, that you should stay in it and you should have that tenacity. And I know another thing that you do, you've talked about surrounding yourself with a good circle, with positivity and having a positive mindset. So we talk a little bit about that. When has it been difficult for you on this journey and how did you turn that around?
I think that, let's say, when I got my first few rejections on the patent front, I was like, oh my God, but that's a key part of my whole strategy. Like, now what? That was really disheartening. And also because I'm not a lawyer and I don't read patentese.
Right.
I was like, I don't even know what it's saying, but it doesn't sound good. And thinking, well, that's it. I learned that it's almost like a game with the patent office. They're not playing a game with you, but it's not uncommon to be rejected several times because they're really looking for you to hone your claims, right? So I learned that it's just, you have to stay in it and you have to keep reiterating and changing this. And that's what having a business is. Like, take that patent battle situation and then just add it to everything that you're doing on every single front. Nothing's going to, like my first production cups, I was like, that's not right. I don't like the way this looks. And you have to go through the whole process again. And it takes time. And those can be really disheartening because we all want to hit 100% right from the get-go. And so you realize that you don't. So then it's adjusting your mindset about that and saying, okay, I think this is what's going to work. Now I'm going to go out there and see what's the evidence of it. What feedback am I going to get? And it's being open to that. Yeah. So it's basically like, yeah, you have your doubts and so forth, but it's like, okay, recognize the doubts are there, but don't let those doubts say, all right, I'm done. I'm going to go do something else. I have read a lot of books about mindset because I can recognize it myself when I'm letting doubt take over. Mm-hmm. So I now have developed quite a practice of saying, all right, that's the doubt speaking. You just keep moving. And so I take a lot of inspiration from other entrepreneurs and people who have been in more difficult situations than I will ever know. And I think, all right, if someone could survive gliding in World War II, into France with, sniper shots going by them every time, I think that I can manage this. I'm just going to have to figure this out. Yeah. And it's that. One thing you said about the resource, and I should mention one other one that has been incredibly helpful, and that is SCORE. There are a lot of helpful people, and you can go through different mentors, but there are people with expertise in everything. And you just find the one mentor that has the expertise that you need. And these are free services for anything that's to do with business, whether you're going to open up a restaurant or a stationery shop or do something online, whatever. There are people with expertise who are available and willing to help you. And they've got business plan templates and they've got pitch deck templates and all these things that can help you. And a lot of them are former entrepreneurs, so they know the score. They understand that entrepreneurial journey. And those are the people I think that can be really helpful because many times when you're starting a business, it gets lonely.
Yeah, and you don't know who to trust or who to get the best advice from. So I love that you're mentioning SCORE. I know the SBA has a lot of great resources as well.
Yes.
But there are a lot of people willing to help. We just have to remember to ask for it, right?
That's right. And another good place is I did my graduate study at Cornell, and they have the business school there, and they had an entrepreneurship center.
Oh.
And it was aimed at their MBA students, but I was able to go in there and talk to the professors, have them recommend a book or two, and getting some really world-class sources and advice. And I would urge, going to your local business school and just find out the professor of entrepreneurship and then go ask them, if you have a moment, I really would love some recommendations on a couple of books, whatever. Mm-hmm. It's like people are all around.
Yeah. And most people want to be helpful.
They do.
Yeah.
I have found that to be true.
Amazing. So for Cobalt Rose Company, you do have product on your website right now.
Yep.
And your social media. You have an Instagram. Do you have other social media as well? Are you focused?
I have the Facebook page and I have Instagram. And right now we're just doing some videos, my husband and I, and putting them up there. I have a virtual assistant who handles a lot of that for me because I am not a social media person. Just not. And it becomes a big time suck for me because once I get on there, you can be in there 2 hours and I don't have that type of time. We have a YouTube channel. We have our Instagram and Facebook. Okay. And that's it.
And is there any last piece of advice, Carina, that you would want to give to the audience? Anything that we didn't cover today?
I think I gave the best nuggets that were really my lessons, but I do think that if you believe in something, whatever it is you want to do, and there are going to be people who are going to naysay all the time, but if you really believe in something, then just go do it because you have one short life and that's it. That is it.
So true. So true. And do you have a favorite quote or mantra or verse or something that sticks out that in your mind that you always go back to when you're going?
Yeah, there are several, but there's one, and I wish I could remember it verbatim, and I think it's Walt Whitman. And it was something along the lines of, I'm paraphrasing it, you can go and imitate someone else, but it's never going to be that good because you're imitating someone and you only see half of that person or part of that person. Nothing beats your full authentic self out there and being the best of that. And then later on, someone's going to want to imitate you, but that's my paraphrase of a Walt Whitman quote about being your best self and not trying to imitate someone else. I hold true to that when I look, say, at my competition. I think, I could do what they're doing. I'm thinking, but that's not what I want to do. I don't know. That's not my message.
Fantastic. Carina, you've added so much value to the audience today. Thank you so much. And I will definitely add Cobalt Rose Company into the show notes so people can find the website if they're listening and they want to click through, or if they're watching on YouTube, they'll also find out that information. And I've just really appreciated our conversation today. And I know the audience has as well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time and our conversation together.
Yay. And to the listeners, thank you so much for listening to another episode of Your Brand Amplified. I'll be back again in a few days with some more expert advice. Want more? Check out amplifywithannika.com or follow me on socials at amplifywithannika.